In Nicaragua, the counting process is underway after this Sunday's municipal elections, in which nearly 4 million citizens were summoned to vote. In the U.S., polls reveal that nearly half of registered voters want a great deal of change in how President Joe Biden is leading the country. Leaders from all over the world are arriving to the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh to take part at the 27th Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, also known as COP27. From the headquarters of teleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. In Nicaragua, the counting of votes in the municipal elections continued. Nearly 4 million citizens were eligible to vote. The Supreme Electoral Council, as the authority in charge of organizing and controlling the electoral processes in the country, presented the first results in this Sunday's elections, in which more than 3 million Nicaraguans cast their vote to elect more than 100 mayors and deputy mayors, as well as over 5,000 councilors. The president of the Supreme Electoral Council, Brenda Rocha, highlighted the election as a democratic and sovereign exercise, where the will of citizens was expressed in a transparent, democratic, and peaceful manner.
We have successfully concluded, thank God, a democratic and sovereign exercise where the will of citizens was expressed in a transparent, democratic, and peaceful manner at the ballots.
And the Secretary General of the Bolivarian Alliance for the Peoples of Our America, People's Trade Treaty, Sasha Lorenti, congratulated the people and institutions of Nicaragua for holding the municipal elections. In a message published in this Twitter account, the Secretary General of ALBA TCP described the elections as a democratic day where 153 mayors and councilors were elected for those municipalities. The regional body highlighted the deep democratic vocation of the Nicaraguan people, establishing peace over the calls for violence and destabilization. Llorenti extended his best wishes for the success of the Central American country as it continues to advance in economic growth and social transformations based on greater inclusion, justice, and equity. In Ecuador, ash from the Sangay volcano blanketed crop fields and residential areas in south-central province of Morona, Santiago, and in Chimborazo province. According to Chimborazo Governor Ivan Vinuesa, over 1,800 hectares of crops and 7,000 heads of cattle were affected by the volcanic material, affecting more than 3,000 producers. Authorities report that in some places the ash layer was between 3 and 4 millimeters after the ash cloud from Sangay, causing the greenhouses and warehouse structures to collapse, in addition to the effects on corn, onion, potato, and pasture crops. This Sunday, the Geophysical Institute reported that through satellite monitoring, the emission of ash was observed between 900 and 2,100 meters above the crater level in northwest and west directions, respectively. This phenomenon, as reported by the National Risk Management Service, has been persistent since May 2019, within the current eruptive period of Sangay, and warned the population to take the necessary measures and to be informed by official sources. The Ecuadorian Public Health Ministry said on Monday that so far 28 people have died from burro leg liquor poisoning, while 6 others remain in critical conditions. In a press release, the ministry reported that in the province of Esmeraldas, 14 people died, while the rest were recorded in Santo Domingo de los Chasilas. The institution also said that the number of people suffering from methyl alcohol intoxication reached 85, and all of them have been treated in public health facilities. Authorities stated they continue to monitor and investigate the cases of mass intoxication around the country. In Ecuador, the National Assembly discussed in its plenary session the situation of insecurity the country is facing, while 3 provinces remain in a state of emergency. According to the schedule of the legislative body, the meeting took place during the 809th session of the plenary session, as announced by the president of the legislature, Virgilio Saquicela. The meeting came 6 days after the government of President Guillermo Lasso issued a state of emergency in the provinces of Guayaquil and Esmeraldas, and was later extended to Santo Domingo de los Táchilas. A few days ago, the President of the National Assembly participated in the Council of Public and State Security, along with the head of state, as well as the commanders of the National Police and Armed Forces, among others. According to the last NBC News poll before the United States midterm elections, nearly half of registered voters want a great deal of change in how President Joe Biden is leading the country. 47% of voters said they want change from the Biden administration, while another 19% said they wanted quite a bit of change, and 21% said they just want some change. The poll came in the final stretch of the elections, in which Republicans are expected to win control of the House and are deadlocked with Democrats in the fight for the Senate. The survey also showed the economy and crime as the top issues heading to Election Day, despite Democrats trying to keep the focus on abortion rights and threats to democracy. We'll take a short break, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at teleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates, and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Leaders from all over the world are arriving to the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh to take part at the United Nations and Heads of State Climate Summit COP27. On this occasion, and for the first time, the heads of state will debate a compensation proposal for developing nations to help them cope with the damages associated with climate change. Attendees are being received by the UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres and the President of Egypt, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. Among the leaders who will address the summit representing Latin America are Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros, the Colombian Head of State, Gustavo Petro, Honduran President COP27, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi called on the international community to put aside excuses and take action to address the climate crisis.
And there are still a few years to go before the end of the defining decade, and we must take advantage of it to resolve this battle the way we want to. It is time for action and implementation. There is no way to stand down or room for excuses, as missing the opportunity will throw away the legacy for future generation of our children and grandchildren.
Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro Moros participated in the working group on the food crisis and stated his position on the capitalist production model, which he pointed out is responsible for devastating water and soil biodiversity. The president also said that the environmental crisis aggravates the food crisis, which has reached a global scale due to inequality and poverty. The president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, stated at the beginning of the COP27 that the summit has a sense of implementation to lessen the damage caused by climate change.
This summit has a sense of implementation. Hopefully, we will achieve the implementation of so many agreements in order to mitigate the tremendous damage already caused by climate change on the planet.
In the framework of the 27th Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, taking place in the Egyptian city of Sharm el-Sheikh, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, met with his Algerian counterpart, Abdelmajid Tebboune, at the convention center, hosting the largest global meeting for the fight against climate change. The Climate Summit is an annual gathering that brings together nearly 200 countries to discuss climate change and how to address the issue. And also, in the framework of the bilateral talks between the heads of state, the president of Venezuela, Nicolás Maduro Moros, held a meeting with his French counterpart, Emmanuel Macron. This top officials' dialogue comes after Macron expressed his interest in promoting and participating in the dialogue in Venezuela. The meeting takes place within the framework of the installation of the presidents of the COP27 Climate Summit, which seeks to discuss strategies to reverse climate change in the world. Addressing the heads of state and government taking part at the 27th Conference of the Parties of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Egypt, the Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, said countries have the collective capacity to transform.
But what we do need to do is to understand why we are not moving any further. 1.5 to stay alive cannot be that mantra. And I take no pride in being associated with having to repeat it over and over and over. We have the collective capacity to transform.
During this Monday's session, the Secretary General of the United Nations Organization, Antonio Guterres, assured that the planet's climate is reaching a no-return point.
Is ticking. We are in the fight of our lives, and we are losing. Greenhouse gas emissions keep growing, global temperatures keep rising, and our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible. We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot still on the accelerator.
And a prolonged drought in Kenya is taking a toll on the country's wildlife, with rivers drying up, grasslands shriveling, and over 100 elephants dying in park reserves. In the north part of the country, the impact of 4 failed consecutive rainy seasons has been devastating. In Samburu National Reserve, long periods of drought and extreme heat waves are affecting the strongest of the animals, elephants. That's the case of Monsoon. She is the matriarch of a famous elephant family found in this reserve. But today, she is battling hunger alone, as her family has been forced to migrate in search of greener pasture. Adult elephants, which have no predators, roam widely to get their daily intake of water and about 300 kilograms of grass. As a consequence of the prolonged drought, water is disappearing, and the grass is all but gone. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Russia's President Vladimir Putin ordered to send environmental missions to the Donbass to minimize damage to nature caused by the fighting. The Russian head of state specified that the government, together with the authorities of Donetsk and Lugansk, as well as the autonomous non-profit organizations, should develop a program to send humanitarian and ecological missions to this region. The president also stressed the need to train specialized personnel to be in charge of environmental protection and nature management. In this line, Putin informed that a comprehensive report on the development of environmental actions should be submitted by February 1st, 2023. Thousands of Cameroonians gathered in the capital Yaoundé to celebrate President Paul Biya's 40 years in power. The Cameroon People's Democratic Movement was in charge of organizing the celebration across the country. After 7 years as prime minister, the 89-year-old Cameroonian leader became head of state in 1982, replacing the country's first president, Ahmadou Ahidjo, who resigned. Since then, President Biya has not stopped winning elections, which the opposition has called fraudulent. The last elections took place in 2018, leading to President Biya's seventh seven-year term in office.
There is the Constitution. We respect the constitutional text. For the moment, his mandate is still running. You want us to kick out the president when his mandate is not finished. So we are proud of him. The rest, the future will tell us, whether it is long or not. The main thing is that we are in peace.
At least 5 Syrian military personnel have been killed and 5 others injured as a result of a terrorist drone attack in the Idlib demilitarized zone, in the northern part of the country and near the border with Turkey. According to the deputy head of the Russian Center for Syrian Reconciliation, Oleg Yegorov, the attack was carried out by al-Nusra Front terrorists and targeted positions and members of government forces in the town of Yurin, 120 kilometers southwest of Aleppo. In response to the attack, the Syrian Air Force reportedly carried out a strike against an al-Nusra Front compound, thus destroying a training camp as well as subway shelters of illegal armed groups. During the operation, 93 fighters were killed and 135 others were wounded. At a press briefing on Monday, spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, Zhao Lijian, said countries coerced by the United States into curbing ship exports to China should make their decisions independently.
The U.S. deed is not what an upright major country should do, of course. It's nothing new for the U.S. to abuse its national power and use economic coercion against its allies with its technical advantage in order to maintain its hegemony and selfish interests. The U.S. intention of politicizing, instrumentalizing, and idealizing issues on side tech economy and trade, as well as imposing technological blockade on and decoupling with other countries, are already well known. We hope that parties concerned will take an objective and impartial position and make a correct judgment, independently based on their own long-term interests and the fundamental interests of the international community.
And today, teleSUR English invites you to enjoy a special interview to Ralph Gonsalves, Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The leader, politician, and Grenadian head of state goes on regional issues, today's politics, Caribbean integration, among other paramount topics. Don't miss it, on air 5 p.m. Quito, Ecuador, and Havana, Cuba. Also 6 p.m. Caracas, Venezuela, and New York in the U.S. Enjoy this special interview only in teleSUR. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For teleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.